Today, I'm joined by Jordan Whelan. Jordan is the visionary founder of Gray Smoke Media, North America's only full service legal marketing agency, where his innovative campaigns have been featured everywhere, from Forbes to the New York Post. He's helped transform Diamond and Diamond into Canada's top law firm, and his strategic edge has guided over $3 billion in class action communications. But Jordan's story doesn't stop at media. Under the artist name Jordan Power, he's also a singer-songwriter with millions of streams, blending his personal journey of resilience and transformation into music that resonates deeply with listeners. From the boardroom to the recording studio, Jordan brings a rare mix of creativity, strategy, and soul. Jordan Whalen, up next. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Different Facets of Happiness. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I was saying to you earlier that I absolutely love your voice, and I'm sure your audience does as well. It's one of those one in a million voices that just flows like butter. It's really beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. So, Jordan, you've helped take small law firms from small local players to national powerhouses, and you spent over 50 million in media buying and been featured in outlets like Forbes and the New York Post. But for people watching you today for the first time, how would you describe what you actually do in several sentences?
I am an expert in unorthodox web traffic generation. I find sources for people on the internet, traffic that other people don't think. You know, when you hire marketing firms, a lot of the times you'll call four or five of them and you'll get the same story over and over. And I really specialize in looking at the many inroads that are available to pick up organic traffic on the internet, whether that's Quora, Pinterest, Reddit, media, podcasting, stuff like that. I come up with creative solutions for people in that way. I think it's really interesting because you'll have a great client that you want to work with, but they might have a third of the budget of their competitor. And when you come up with these creative ways, you can find a way for them to compete on the same level instead of just going for a purely paid spend.
Yeah. So that visibility can mean the difference between barely surviving and dominating the market, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, you also have to run a great business. A lot of people will talk to me, how do I get my reviews up? How do I get more visibility on Google My Business? And at the end of the day, it's you still have to run a great business.
Yeah.
But if you have a great business and have a great unique value proposition, you come to someone like me, I say, okay, let's find creative ways to get you out there. I mean, we want to go where the people are. So many times nowadays, people are like, I want to run ads. I want to be intrusive and get into people's lives on their Instagram feed and their TikTok feed. It's like, go where your core audience already is
Yeah.
and build out from there. And nowadays, you know, it's competitive, but it's also not, right? Because I was talking about this with my music career. It used to take 10 years to launch a music career. Now you can already go where the people are. You can throw up some videos on YouTube, TikTok, start a conversation on Reddit, and suddenly have your first 4,000 fans.
Yeah.
That used to take artists years because they'd have to get a hit in the newspaper and they'd have to leverage it and they'd have to do showcases. So, in a lot of ways, it is competitive nowadays, but it's also not.
I get it. So if SEO, search engine optimization, if for those who don't know, was a chess game, what the next best and biggest move in 2025 or remaining of 2025 and beyond that few people see coming?
So when we talk about SEO, right? In the old days, it was sort of like SEO is search marketing for on Google or Bing or Yahoo. Nowadays, the word or the term SEO sort of encompasses all platforms. So the search bar on TikTok is technically SEO. The search bar on YouTube is SEO, and those results are coming up in Google results. And so it's sort of everything. And so I tell people if you're tackling SEO, you're tackling it everywhere. You want to put content everywhere because then that might show up on the first page of Google, or you might want to optimize your YouTube in a certain way. But what I think is interesting is I had a client about 6 months ago where the traffic was down. The traffic was down 20%. We were doing a great job. And they were saying, you know, where's this traffic? We just plummeted. And I said, yeah, it's gone and it's not coming back
Yeah.
because it's been lost to the generative AI at the top of Google. Gone are the days where you could just write a blog and it'd show up for people and they would go and read it. Number one, people aren't reading really much anymore.
Yeah.
They're digesting it in small content bits. I'm guilty of that too. But what's not going to go away with SEO in 2025 and beyond is the local searches, right? You're still going to search for your air conditioner repair Toronto. You're still going to look for the person that's close to you. So I say to people, put your efforts into optimizing that Google local page, you'd be amazed at the amount of people that don't put content on there. They don't answer the Q&As, they don't put new photos. I mean, it's essentially free traffic that's already there. But what's really going to take over in SEO is voice searches on all these platforms, Claude, ChatGPT, and if you're not optimizing for those specifically, you will get left by the wayside.
Yeah. From your experience, then, what's the most expensive marketing blunder that some of your clients have made, and how can others avoid it?
Cheaping out on your website, going for a cheap server, going for unskilled developer, trying to save money. That is the number one thing that I tell people. Your website, your website, your website. If your website's slow, it will drive people away. It doesn't matter how much you pay to get the traffic there. If your website's slow, it will affect your SEO. If your website in itself evokes strange emotions, or I don't see myself represented, if it's a law firm of 20 white guys and I'm a woman,
Yeah.
perhaps we should consider putting one of them on the page. For me, it's just the website. It's the look, it's the fonts, what we evoke. Do we communicate the unique value proposition right away? And that's going to be sort of the bedrock from which you will build all your marketing efforts. I do think social media is important, but it's only important for certain industries, right? For lawyers and stuff like that, it's not really as important unless you're really communicating a unique value proposition or you're more consumer based, like your personal injury firm. It's still the website is the core of everything, and you'd be amazed the amount of people that try to hire the cheap developer and then their website crashes at in the middle of the day and they've lost 6 leads. And so I tell people, don't come to me, don't come to Gray Smoke Media until you have your website set because we don't do websites and I find them to be a massive headache. And if you can't get over that infancy stage, then we're going to run into a lot of problems.
So everyone should have a website. What about having just an app?
It depends on your industry, right? I mean, certain people can get away with it depending on if they're, if you're a beauty influencer, you might not need a website, but most businesses need a website and most businesses need an updated website. They need a fast website, they need a lean website, they need a mobile optimized website. It is amazing to me the amount of people that come to me and have not updated their website in 8 to 10 years, not even just from like a branding perspective,
Ah,
but from the perspective of adding things that convert people, a chat bot, different images that hook people. You can install a Hotjar on your website, which will show you how people are behaving on your site. I had one client where we installed it and we realized that almost no one was scrolling past the top half of the website. So then that's something where you have to sit down and say, what are people feeling right when they come to the website and what can we fix?
yeah.
And if you never do that, I mean, you might go years and wonder why your competitors keep, plugging ahead when you're spending just as much money and it's so simple.
Oh my goodness. So, as you mentioned, AI is rewriting the rules of marketing. How can law firms and other companies harness it to outpace bigger competitors?
The way you counter AI, not just for marketing or anything like that, a lot of people obviously have a lot of anxiety nowadays about this. I always say just lean into what makes you human. That's something that cannot be replaced by AI. If you're writing a blog about specific topics that your competitor can just spin with a content creation tool and then try to steal your SEO traffic, you're not really going to get anywhere. But if you lean into what makes you human, if you lean into the stories of your clients, the people that you've helped, the background of your business, what you went through, that's going to allow you to kind of become inimitable in certain ways. But when you're optimizing for AI, you want to focus on how people on the SEO side of things, how people actually search, right? So in the past, we would optimize for a specific keyword like car accident lure Toronto.
Yeah.
Now you're going to optimize it for how would I actually pick up my chat GPT and yell into my phone looking for the inquiry. And that might be who's the best car accident lawyer in the Toronto area. That might be one search term.
Right.
So that's something that's going to be important. You want to optimize for natural language, and then you want to sort of continue to prioritize being authoritative expert in your industry. So that's going to encompass everything. So everything from media appearances, podcasting, social media signals coming through. You still have to be out there and present, and then AI is going to pull from a bunch of different platforms. But if you're everywhere, the likelihood that you're going to rank well for SEO results in AI is higher.
So, say I'm a small firm or company with a shoestring marketing budget. What's your blueprint for competing against industry giants?
Creativity. I mean, that's what AI cannot replace nowadays, and I don't think it will replace that anytime soon. The type of content it generates and the ideas are a bit stilted. I'm sure a lot of people have realized that.
Yeah.
And so what you're going to lean into is creative ways to get people's attention. Social media is great. I mean, it's saturated at the end of the day, but it's still got low barriers to entry. And if you look at your specific niche, say it's, let's use a legal example, say it's immigration law in the Toronto area, and you look at your competitors and you do an analysis and you say, on the SEO side of things, we're getting crushed and it's probably going to cost us 25,000 in backlinks to get up there. On the AdWords side of things, we're getting crushed. Let's go where it's cheaper to enter and where there's more of an opportunity. So let's put our efforts into generating Pinterest pins. Let's put our efforts into making 45 videos on our iPhone that we get someone to edit that we can dominate on YouTube and thus the SEO page one. Let's get out in the public. Let's shake hands. Let's meet people. Let's sponsor a local hockey team. Let's build that brand benevolence in a way. These are things that are relatively inexpensive that you can use to get ahead. And then also, getting out in the public, being an expert in every way that you can. There are limits, I'm not going to pretend that, if your competitor has 10x the budget, that you're going to be able to just get out there and shake some hands. But nowadays, there are a lot of inroads to get people to pay attention to you and explore that. I mentioned earlier, just getting Google reviews up, legitimate reviews, posting content on there, Q&A. I mean, I generated a client $100,000 a month, and it took us 3 months to optimize their Google local locations
Yeah.
simply because their competitors were not even touching it. They weren't thinking to do that. They were so focused on AdWords and the general SEO side of things.
Oh, goodness. Well, we talked about ads just recently. Let's just talk about that for another second. Because in ad buying, what are the silent budget killers most businesses don't even realize they're making?
The ego play. So you'll see it usually with realtors, not to call
Yeah.
them out, but they'll buy the billboard near their house because they wanna show their neighbors that they're doing well, or they want to have their high school girlfriend see that they're doing well nowadays. They'll put their faces on benches. If you don't already have top of mind awareness, the out of home space, which encompasses billboards, buses, stuff like that, that's not a great idea. You don't come in as a nobody and start buying bus ads and stuff like that because it takes a long time for people to understand who you are. They say 7 times. So with a client like Diamond and Diamond, I mean, we were already established for a decade on
Yeah.
all these different marketing avenues, and we had
Just
such
having
great
you
brand
say
awareness.
diamond and diamond right now, I'm hearing the commercials. It's ringing in.
Diamond and Diamond. Yeah, jingles work. That's the other little tip. So that's something that people do is they buy things, they buy radio ads, they buy things because they wanna be noticed, and there's something inside of them that needs to be heard. I mean, we all wanna be heard, but that's a huge mistake. You wanna really I'll give you an example that's really granular. I had a client that's a divorce lawyer,
Yeah.
and they wanted to compete, and they wanted to buy radio ads, and we found out through looking through the data that 70% of divorces were actually initiated by women. And then we also found that most couples were fighting in the range of about 7:30 in the morning to about 8:30 in the morning, and then they'd get in their car, and they'd be angry and they were driving to work. So we ran the ads exclusively during the time of the morning rush, we call it. So the morning drive to work. And their competitor was spending about 3 times what they were, but they were spending it on sports ads, sports stations, which are actually the inverse of what I'm talking about, predominantly male. So it's a perfect example of, just spending the spray and pray marketing approach versus going granular with the actual data and saying, "Okay, wait, who's actually creating the divorces? Yeah, how much money are they earning? Where are they located? Psychographically, what are they?" And you start to break that down and not just the buy, but the actual creative of the ad.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you start to realize, "Oh, this is a lot easier than we're making it out to be." But
Right.
we can't get lazy with the data. And nowadays with ChatGPT, you have a market researcher in your pocket. You don't really
Yeah.
have an excuse not to do this stuff.
Right. That is so strategic and so simple.
Mhm.
Yes.
Simple, yeah.
Yeah. It's
That's everything in life.
right.
It's keep it what is it? It's keep it simple, stupid, I believe is the
Right. That's
famous
right.
saying. Yeah.
Like
So
something
that
so obvious that people don't think about.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're wrapped up in the egoic mind. It's like what I said. Oh, I want to be seen here. I want to do this. It's like, well, what actually is going to create leads?
Right. 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 What's one or unorthodox way that people or you can generate traffic and that's really come to you as a surprise, I'll say, that's been very, very successful in addition to what you just mentioned?
So I will give you one of my secrets on your show that I don't normally share, but you're a lovely human being, so I'll share it
Oh,
with you. Even though we never met in person. So I am a singer-songwriter under the name Jordan Power. I started about a year ago. I've generated about 5 million streams since then and some radio play. And
wow.
one of the avenues, yeah, all metaphysics, which we can get to in a
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, yeah.
And one of the avenues that I realized that was extremely popular but wasn't being tapped into by people was Pinterest. Pinterest has hundreds of millions of people using it every month, and we think of it as sort of a site where you would curate items for your house or
Right.
recipes,
Yeah.
but it's still highly trafficked. The results show up in Google Images. And so one of the things I had done is generate both video clips and clips of my lyrics on Pinterest to generate inbound traffic from Pinterest to my Spotify or Apple Music or other platforms. And was able to generate about 25,000 clicks a month using that avenue. And then you can
Wow.
leverage AI. Yeah, and which is again really you think about what you're spending on AdWords for similar traffic or other platforms, it might be 40 cents a click.
Yeah.
But when I run what it costs me to actually create the pins using AI, post them, and then the long-term benefit, your cost per click is pennies. So that's an example of just getting creative, going where the people are, like I said. But one really easy way that I always tell people is depending on your industry, let's use an example like air conditioner repair Toronto. When you search that, look where what comes up because those are the inbound roads to your website, right? So if you search that and Quora comes up, which is a website where people answer questions, then you need to be on there answering a question with a link to your site because that might be your new funnel that generates 50 to 100 people a month.
Right.
Then the next thing that comes up is maybe Yelp, or maybe it's a Reddit thread on page 2 that many people aren't noticing. You need to comment on that Reddit thread and now you have another funnel to your site. And so this is the unorthodox ways where we go where the people already are. We're not reinventing the wheel here or being intrusive with ads in them. We go where they're answering questions, we go where the inquiries are, and we simply create different roads into the website for a relatively small amount of money.
Ah, see, again, these are things that people just don't think about.
Right.
Honestly.
Simple. Simple
Yes.
stuff. That's what it is.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, so Jordan, let's talk about metaphysics in business for a second. You talk about energetic alignment in business. Can you break down how that actually translates into measurable wealth and growth?
Yeah, so I was a totally unconscious human being for the vast majority of my life. I went to Bali last year. It's a crazy story. I met a woman in the tent, and she told me about my past lives, and she kind of woke me up to a lot of the things that I didn't know anything about my whole life. And last year, I started making music under my stage name, Jordan Power. And I have no musical background at all. I also had a disease for 18 years that I naturally cured using these methods, which I can explain about in a second.
Yes.
And when I woke up to a lot of this stuff, I tried different iterations of law of attraction, law of assumption, but they didn't work in the way that I needed them to work until I started assuming a state of being. And this is really the biggest thing that I teach people in business or just in my personal life is that largely you're a spiritual being. You're here for a limited period of time. And every day you're sort of what I would describe it as is a meat suit. You're wearing a meat
Yeah.
suit, you're
Yeah.
going through life, and you're shifting through infinite parallel realities. Your awareness, you are the awareness behind your reality, your thoughts, etc. And so what you need to learn with law of attraction assumes that you're pulling things towards you. But when you start to think of it as you're actually the source of your individual reality, your bubble, let's say. So you're in this multi-dimensional, multi-frequential system that you're in, but you're also nested within a larger multiverse, the collective consciousness. And so you're going through your day and you're sort of in this like little, let's call it the Matrix little video game that you're in. And the way that you shift to a new reality is by focusing your awareness, which is also known as your state of being, on a certain reality to make it come to you. And so when I learned about this and I started making music, no background, didn't know anything about how to write a song, had no capabilities, couldn't do it at all. I shifted my state of being to I am the greatest songwriter in the world as an experiment. What I did was I robotically affirmed like a crazy person all day long, right? 30 to 40,000 times a day, I'm the greatest songwriter in the world. Now, I didn't need to do that. I simply needed to assume the state of being of a person who was the greatest songwriter in the world, and thus I would shift to that parallel reality in which I was.
Yeah.
Now that I know that, I didn't have to drive myself crazy all day long. But what started happening is this person who'd never written a song, who had no musical background, who didn't know the chords, suddenly became a better and better songwriter in a very short period of time. It was only really a couple of months that I had songs on the radio. And people were saying to me, "How did you do this?" And I said, the same way that I cured my ulcerative colitis, which is a disease I had for 18 years, I no longer assume the state of being of a sick person. I refuse to place my awareness and my attention on anything in my 3D reality which would confirm that I was a sick person or that I wasn't a good songwriter. And so knowing that and going through life and little things that I manifest on a daily basis, the way I coach clients and people in my personal life is I tell them that you need to be very good at ignoring your senses. You need to be very good at ignoring the reality that's in front of you because this is the residual reality of your previous traumas and the stories that you've told yourself from your old character. And that's a skill in itself because, it's extremely convincing and we get wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
And if you try to fix your life or manifest from the character or the reality in front of you, it's very, very difficult because you're playing with the hologram. But if you pull back and say, no, I'm the source of my reality entirely, it's a whole internal game that you work on a daily basis. And so that's something that I really realized in my life, and I've been able to manifest literal miracles. But that nuance, that specific nuance about how to get into a new reality, I feel like is lost in a lot of the YouTube content and the manifestation content because they say, you know, you just have to robotically affirm, you got to do these things, you got to build a vision board. And those might work, they're tools, but what's really underscoring a lot of this is the state of being in the internal state about who you are, which then would be reflected out to the outside world and projected back.
So you're saying, despite everything that's going on in reality, you have to learn to ignore what's happening in front of you and become that person that you want to be.
Yes, you need to walk like that person, you need to talk like that person, you need to think like that person. When you catch yourself behaving like, let's see Jackie as two characters. So you've got Jackie 1.0, you've got Jackie 2.0. You're really just shifting between characters or new realities, new scripts for Jackie. So if Jackie wants to become 2.0, she needs to catch herself when she's not behaving like 2.0, when she's thinking like 1.0, right? And we do that all day long because our ego's so powerful. It's trying to keep us in Jackie 1.0. It's trying to keep us safe. But if you go about life and when the thoughts come in, the thoughts are constantly bombarding us, they're going to say, "Oh no, you're not that." And the universe is going to test you. You're not this new Jackie. You're this Jackie. You've been this way for decades. You start to control the thoughts and you realize that the way that you actually manifest is you need to once you give energy to thoughts, they manifest. But if a thought comes by that is Jackie 1.0 and you say, "No, I'm becoming the new Jackie who makes 2 times the amount of income as Jackie 1.0." You take that thought, the thought comes in, it challenges you, you take a deep breath, you refuse to energize it, right? To make it come into your reality, and you move your awareness to Jackie 2.0. And as you do that, your world starts to shift. And one of the other tricks you have to do is stop looking for proof of being the new Jackie. So people will check their bank account every 10 minutes. They'll check their social media following, right? And
Right.
the answer is if you were this new person that you say you are and you were behaving like that, why would you do that? If you want a nice car and you got the nice car, you wouldn't be constantly wanting the Mercedes, which is a state of lack. You would become the person who already had it, and it'd be easy. Of course, I have a Mercedes. Why would I want it? It's in my garage.
Right.
So
Right.
this is the small nuances that the elites know, and a lot of really powerful people know, is that it's an internal game. This all is an internal game that is a constant struggle. But once you get into it, the thoughts get quieter.
You're right, the thoughts do get quieter. But is there a time frame that this takes? Because a lot of people I know that they want instant manifestation, and there's a reason why things don't manifest instantly. But in terms of your processes that you've talked about and the methods, how long does it usually take for people when they're becoming this new state of being for things to manifest?
So there's two things they have to take into account. They have to be in the frequency of the thing they want, right? So famously, the woman that wrote the book The Secret, she tells a story of being $100,000 in debt, and what she
Yeah.
would do is when her bills came in, she'd treat them as checks. She would say, "Oh my God, I'm rich. I'm rich. Oh my God, I have so much money." And as she did that, she shifted into the frequency of abundance and would made, I don't know, $50 million or something like that. So that's the first part of it. Are you constantly living in the frequency of someone who is in love, if you want love, if you, whatever you want? And the second thing is, have you built the actual container to be able to take on that new reality, right? That wealth container. Are you someone who could handle making an extra $100,000 a year? Would it freak you out? Do you have childhood trauma you haven't worked on? So those are kind of the two elements that are going to determine how fast that new reality starts to make its way towards you. I mean, on a quantum mechanics level, how long the particles take to rearrange in front of you. And what blocks their rearrangement is fear, lack, not being in the frequency, not being the person who can handle it. And really, the biggest battle in everything is fear. It's not really real. It's a low vibration emotion that doesn't actually really exist. But we're so conditioned to believe that things are going to go wrong, and as we believe that and say that out loud, why would it work out? It didn't work out in the past. We continue to block the manifestation towards us. So that's why meditation is so important, not just for visualization, but for nervous system regulation.
So for someone who's trying this for the first time and hearing about it for the first time, and believe it or not, there are people that are hearing about it for the first time. How do you get into that frequency? I know you talked about the stepping into that believing, that belief that you are this person that you want to be. But how do you get to that level of frequency? And you also mentioned meditation. What else can people do?
Well, I think the first thing that I had to realize as someone who's had a very traumatic life, and again, I don't really like to talk about my past that much because it's not real. Everything's now, and those are just imaginal acts. But I will say, if you're someone who's cleaving to that old story, you need to go through a process of nervous system regulation. If you are in fight or flight and fear and anger and shame and guilt, it's going to be very difficult for you to take on your dream life. So I had to not only just clean up my diet, get all the chemicals out of my house, meditate on a daily basis. I did Reiki, I did spinal energetics, I did breath work. I did things that got me out of old Jordan and the way that he would react to certain situations. And that's the first step I always say to people. That would be your number one priority. The second thing I would say is in all of this, you almost have to act a little bit delusional. I mean, we're taught to shrink ourselves. We're taught that humility is a virtue, but it's really actually not. Because if you look up the definition of humility, it's actually a lowering of one's self-importance. And if you are going to be this greatness, if you're going to be this person that gets out there, famously Serena Williams and Taylor Swift's parents have both said that when they were very young, they both said, "I'm going to be the greatest in the world." And it all came out. But we are taught, shrink that, Jackie, be realistic about what's out there. And I'm saying, no, no, there is no limitation. You can move into any infinite reality that you want to. And I don't believe in a level of humility. Obviously, I don't believe in being arrogant. There's a difference.
Yeah.
Don't ever shrink yourself. Don't ever think that there are circumstances outside of you that are going to determine if you're successful. That's not how the world is set up. That's not how quantum physics is set up. It's set up in a way that you have to start living like the new character, the new person. So, one of the examples is to get my streams up on Spotify. I didn't pour a bunch more money into Facebook ads. I was running them. I started walking around like there were paparazzi. I started walking around having fake phone calls with my manager about my tour. And I actually was doing less marketing, and my monthly listeners went up 60,000 people in about 3 weeks
Oh,
because I was living in the new reality. I was shifting in the new reality. And so it's an internal game, and part of this is rejecting victimhood. It's rejecting that there are other people holding you down in a certain way. I mean, I'm guilty of that as a gay guy. So many years people were like, there's no opportunities for you, and I found a way to make them. And I really tell people, you are so much more powerful than you realize. And don't listen to what other people say to you. This is not a game of hustle in business. People think if I just grind it out and work more hours. No, it's a game of alignment. You need to align with the new version of you and let the opportunities naturally come to you from the universe instead of running around like a chicken with your head cut off, trying to force things in constriction and make them happen, which is the antithesis of how this all works.
Exactly. Exactly. I'll say, let's talk about marketing for a moment and go back to the legal industry. So, the legal industry is evolving very, very quickly. If a law firm wanted to stay relevant and dominant 10 years from now, what emerging trends or technologies should they invest in today? And not just legal firms, any companies.
I think bluntly, the first thing I will say is people don't read as much anymore. And there is art, I read books, but to digest content quickly, video, short form video is everything, and that's where it's going. You move away from writing these articles, writing these long posts on Instagram. People don't really care at the end of the day. So give them the facts, give them the anecdotes, and do it in short bites. And that might mean moving to video ads on emerging platforms instead of doing what you were previously doing. Then social media targeting is going to be really important on a local level. If you can't compete on a national level, figure out that you want to dominate this small city. Yeah, there's only 150,000 people there, but if there's not a lot of players, that's your move. So like geofencing is important. Programmatic advertising is going to be big. But really, what's going to dominate in the future is the brand that cannot be mimicked
Yes.
by an AI platform. And there is something really interesting about every person. There's something unique that they have to share in their life, their story, and lean into that is really what I tell people. The actual legal industry itself, there is going to be AI platforms, where you can hire an AI lawyer, but they don't have an enforcement mechanism, right? So if I'm in a legal dispute right now, with a person, I can use ChatGPT to go back and forth at the end of the day, but I don't have a law degree. I can't file a lawsuit. I
Yeah.
can't start a mediation. So I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. I think what you're going to see is a lot more accountability from lawyers because now you have people saying, hey, I actually know more than you because I talked to my ChatGPT last
Right.
night. And for lawyers, their ego defenses are oversized, let's say. So that's going to be a little bit difficult for some of them. But really, I think harkening back to what I was saying at the beginning of the conversation, it's just creativity at the end of the day. You don't need a lot of money. And I see a lot of like really cool 28, 30-year-old lawyers who are starting their own little practices. And the ways that they're getting out there are so brilliant. And they're doing it on their iPhone. They don't need television ads. They don't need radio ads. They're just getting out there and leaning into their iPhone. Maybe they go on ChatGPT and it tells them, hey, I've done some research for you. Make 20 videos about this and hit on these key points and title them like this and throw these hashtags up. I mean, why would you not tap into the infinite intelligence that's available? And then I think, honestly, the emergence of conversations like we're having around mindset, subconscious programming, and assuming a new state of being are going to be paramount in the next 24 months.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My final question to you, Jordan. If you could leave our audience with one bold and maybe even controversial piece of advice to unlock both business and personal growth and happiness, what would it be?
Break the rules. That's always been my thing with
Oh, I love
everything. Yeah. There are no rules except self-imposed ones. There are stories we tell ourselves on a daily basis, which are simply not true. We are so much more powerful than we're led to believe. You need to work on your internal game. That's what I tell people. Stop ignoring this outside world, which is just a residual projection of your mind that's lingering around. Look inside, figure out what your values are, but vividly build in your mind, your imagination, your 4D, which then becomes 3D, the life that you want. I mean, there's a famous story with Neville Goddard, which I'm sure you're familiar with,
Yeah.
where the guy says, I want to go to Barbados. And he says to him, Neville's bugging him and saying, I really want to go to Barbados. And he slams the door in Neville's face. And right before he does, he says, you're already in Barbados. And what I say to people is, the universe wants to take you from point A to point B, and you don't have to figure out that journey. It's going to do it in the most efficient way. Live in the end point of the life you want and watch it come to you. When I started making music, I lived in an end point of when I started, I already had 100,000 listeners when I actually had 20. But I lived in that endpoint and I visualized myself in that endpoint. And the synchronicities and the things that came to me were very easy. Versus 5 years ago when I was starting Gray Smoke Media, I'm running around like a crazy person trying to, tell people to work with me, and there's nothing less attractive than desperate energy
Yes.
in dating, in personal
Anything.
relationships. Yes, so all you have to do is really build the internal game, visualize the business doing well, and then live in the state of being of, "I'm the best legal marketer in the world," right? And say that to yourself in the mirror, and say that until it stops being uncomfortable to hear it reflected back to you.
Jordan, what a fantastic interview. You are great.
Thank
How
you.
can people reach you?
So if they want to work with me, I predominantly work with lawyers, but I actually was a generalized marketing firm for about a decade. So in any industry, if it's something where I think I can help or I think I can have a creative solution, they can reach out to me at Gray Smoke Media. I don't work with anyone in infancy stage. So if you're just starting out or you're 1 year in, I'm not the best fit for you. And if you want to check out my music, it's Jordan Power on all streaming platforms.
Wonderful. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us today. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jackie.
What an inspiring conversation with Jordan Whalen, a man who proves that success doesn't mean limiting yourself to one identity. His journey shows us that you can lead with strategy, build with creativity, and still make space for authentic self expression. Jordan is not only reshaping how legal marketing is done, but also reminding us through his music that storytelling is just as powerful in song as it is in business. His work bridges two worlds, and the common thread is his ability to connect deeply with people. And, with Jordan's permission, we're closing today's episode with one of his own songs, Vultures. It's a track layered with the same honesty, artistry, and depth you've just experienced in our conversation. So as we wrap, I invite you to sit back, take it in, and let Jordan's music carry you out. I'm Jackie Denise. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us today, and be well.